This is one of the main reasons why children and a growing generation are afraid of the future. It's normal to have a normal bit of anxiety about the future, of course, because it is unknown. And the unknown part of our brain, the amygdala, is wired for danger. And so always looking for ways for things to be, well, to go wrong, frankly. And if you really struggle with that, then you struggle with worry. There's a degree to which when we think about the unknown, like I said, it's just a normal process of life and survival. Having said that, studies recently have demonstrated that the current generation and growing up is the most anxious, the most fearful of any generation on record. And every generation gets worse and worse. And one of the number one things in some of the studies I've read, there's one in particular that's the number one topic about which people or the younger generation is most afraid. That is, of course, the future. And of course, the future is unknown. Of course, it is. And it's about the unknownness of it that makes them so anxious. One of the number one reasons why the generation is so afraid of that and why it continues to happen is because parents are not training their children the proper coping mechanisms, the tools with which they need to meet the demands of life. This is what happens in general. All right, people have different scenarios and so forth, but in general, this is what happens. You have parents who become what we call rescuers. They are people, mom or dad, typically the mom, not always, but the parents who disallow the child from experiencing frustrating or distressing situations. When you come to your child's rescue, you do not allow them to suffer the natural consequences of life. And there's something really, the two major things you don't teach them that you should. You don't teach them how they can rely upon themselves for the proper skill sets to process the issue or to rely upon others to get the help they need. Two, you don't teach them that it's a normal routine of life. So instead, what happens is when you come to their aid, you rob them of the chance to grow up and mature and develop an essential part of their character. And that is the capacity, one more time, to deal with reality as it's coming to them and realize that I don't need to control the future by knowledge, by understanding, by awareness in order to be safe. There's nothing I can do to guarantee safety. That's the way it is. And we need to teach our kids that, period. But we do not need to be afraid of the future. We don't need to live in fear because most people, most of the time, do have the skill sets and the resources they need to meet the demands of the moment. And your child is probably one of them who has the capacity. What I mean is they have the capacity. It doesn't mean they can do it. Perhaps they've not been taught how to do it, but therein lies the problem. When we come to the rescue and disallow them to learn that the future is not perfectly safe, but I can trust myself to deal with it as it comes, then it develops a phobia of the future. It makes my anxiety skyrocket. That's all a phobia is. Phobia is a chronic, intense, irrational fear of something. And what's happening now in generations, people have developed a phobia of anxiety, a phobia of the future, a phobia of the unknown, a phobia of, oh, and they don't know how to process that anxiety. So what we want to do is teach people, no matter how old they are, if we're still a parent, live with a parent as much as possible. We want to teach them that that's okay, that everybody has a degree of anxiety about the future, that we don't need to, number two, we don't need to obsess about the future. Three, we certainly don't need to try to control the future. We don't. What we need to do is try to work on our own character and skill set so that we will properly be able to meet the demands of the moment. So if you do lose your job, you have the skill sets to look for another one and find another one. If you do get a flat tire, you know who you should call to get it fixed, or you know how to learn how to fix your tire yourself. If I run out of gasoline, I know how to get the help and so forth. If I don't have enough food, I know the necessary steps. So it's not that you have to be an omniscient MacGyver figure, but instead you just have to have the character to realize I either have the skill sets, or I learn the skill sets, or three, I go to someone else who has the skill sets and they help me in this in between time. When you come to your child's rescue all the time, you really only teach them one of those things, and it's distorted, and that's the third one. You teach them to rely upon other people to come fix your problems all the time. So instead of people being support and helpers and a crutch to help us go to the next step, we become disabled. It's what we call playing the victim. You have a sense of helplessness. You take on a victim mentality and says, If no one else comes to my rescue, like mom or dad did in my childhood, I don't know what to do. I see this all the time in counseling. I see it in relationships where people find themselves attracted to a person either they can rescue, someone who acts like a child all the time, or a person who is attracted to a person who acts like a parent all the time. Either way, they're getting their emotional needs met, but they're very dysfunctional, it's unhealthy, and it does not work. It doesn't work. If you find yourself the person who is scared with the future, you find yourself a phobia, I encourage you to take the necessary steps to get the counseling, read the books, and so forth. You can get better at this skill. You can. If you're a parent, you can teach your kids that. I've got numerous videos on this issue, these kinds of things, podcasts. If you have any questions about that, tell me the comment below, and I'll write a comment, or I'll even do a video for you if there's a particular issue or questions about maybe raising children on this issue, or maybe your own particular needs that you have. You don't know what the next step is. I'm happy to help as best as I can. For more information, go to davidpendergrass.com, and I have more information there. Share this video with your friends if you think it'd be useful. If you'd like to support me and my ministry to keep this YouTube channel free, you can see my website for Patreon, Venmo, Cash, apps, Pals, stuff, whatever. Anyway, God bless you. I hope to see you next time.